Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Half Hour. And I am so thrilled to bring you today's guest. His name is Donnie Boivin, and he is the CEO of Success Champion Networking and is the founder of the Badass Business Summit. All things like just the Badass Business Summit, like those words I love. I'm like, I just want to go. But I want to tell the listeners how we met, and then I want to give it over to you for a little bit more of an introduction to yourself. But listeners, I met Donnie from a former guest, Kate Volman, and I really enjoyed the conversation. We just had about 30 minutes of it, a get to know you, but he's built a very successful business. And I don't think that you have like the most typical background, because I know you've been in the military, you were in sales, and now you help other people build up their businesses. I really love the non-traditional path, but also everything that you had to go through to become who you are today. So Donnie, welcome to the show.
Oh, my honor, Becca. Dude, it took me a second to remember some of our conversation. Once I did, it was awesome. You are a freaking powerhouse, girl.
Thanks.
To be able to accomplish and do the things that you've done and continue to do, you're the kind of people I love hanging out with. So thanks for having me on. This is going to be a blast.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great. So let's talk about, so you're the CEO of your networking company, and you also are the founder of a business summit. And I know, because I got connected to you through a CEO friend, that you're impacting a lot of people out there. But how did you get to be the Donnie that is doing all these things today? Let's get into your backstory.
Yeah, I've blinked my eyes really fast, made a wish, and was instantly successful.
I know so many people are like, how do you do this? And I'm like, well, it's been a long journey. Okay.
For sure. I'll give you the fun background. I had 25 years as a sales guy, and almost 20 of those years were spent selling for other people. And my last career, I picked up partner in a sales training company. I turned 40 before I even knew that you could start your own business. Just a blue collar kid. You work, you get a job, you retire.
Right.
My last business partner and I, we didn't have a falling out. We had a wild conversation that led to the ultimate catalyst for me to jump out on my own. I think it's important for your listeners to hear the story, but we went out to dinner and we were talking about the buyout, and it was a multi-7-figure buyout over a few years, and I was going to take over the company. During that dinner, he said something to me that forever changed my outlook on life, my view of everything. And what he said to me was, Donnie, thank God you're my retirement plan. Now, he said it out of love, and your reaction was what everybody does when I tell this story. My instant response to the guy was, dude, it's been my honor. I love working for you. We're still great friends, right? But after that dinner, I went and sat in my truck. And as I'm sitting in my truck, I literally am looking at myself in the rearview mirror and go, dude, what the fuck is the matter with you? You are literally somebody else's retirement plan. And I looked over my entire life, and that's all I'd been, was somebody else's retirement plan. I wasn't the guy that chose a career path to go learn skill sets. No, I just took every job that was put in front of me, and I just happened to be really good at it. So I had not really explored life, figured out what the hell I wanted to be when I grew up or anything. At that moment, sitting in my truck, I gave myself an ultimatum. The ultimatum was simply this. You either live the life you're living, or you get in the game and you launch a company and quit dreaming that there's something better out there. You can't do both, right? Do one or the other. Because I kept thinking, man, could I do something bigger and more badass out there for myself? Or do I just need to own this life, great life, making great money, doing great things? Which path was I going to choose? I couldn't turn off the dream. So 15 days later, I launched my company.
Oh my gosh, that's quick.
Yeah, I moved fast. Yeah. I'm typically a fairly fast decision maker. I don't always make the right decisions, but I'll make it fast. The whirlwind of life happened from that moment, because 24 hours after launching my company, and it wasn't my business partner that did this to me, it was a company we worked for in conglomerate, I was slapped with a non-compete that I don't remember signing. So I had full intent of launching my own sales training company. And thank God that new non-compete law just went into effect. They don't matter anymore. Saves the guys like me. But only thing I knew was sales. That was my background. I had full intent on launching a sales training organization. My wife and I had built our dream farm. I built a second house on a property for my mother-in-law to live. We were living a fun life. And now I found myself, I left a great job on my own, launched a company, and now I can't launch the company I tried to launch. I couldn't talk about sales, sales management, business development anywhere in the world. And that's all I knew. So I had no idea what the hell my company was. So it felt like I had just gotten fired, because instantly no income. So I'm like, I'm a sales guy. I've been primarily straight commission my entire life. I'll figure this shit out. 6 months of trying to figure this out. my wife's Jeep was repossessed. We almost lost a farm to foreclosure, which means we would have lost our house and my mother-in-law's house. My wife, graciously, she cashed in her 401k to get her Jeep back, save the farm, but that was our last lifeline. I'd already cashed in my 401k to try and sustain the lifestyle we had. And we went from that moment, and that's the stuff we can really dive into, but I went from that moment to now being the CEO of Success Champions Networking, where we run business to business networking groups all throughout North America. 5 best-selling books, pretty cool podcast, and a partridge in a pear tree.
I mean, there's so much in that. But during our pre-talk before we went live, I was just saying that we have a lot of high achievers as listeners on here, that some people are entrepreneurs, some people are working full time and an entrepreneur, and some people are still just dreaming the dream, but like scared to launch. And that's why I really wanted to have you on the show, because I think that there's a realness to your story. It's not picture perfect all the way through. And that's not really how it works anyway. But I would love for you to share with the listeners, like, what is a lesson or two that you learned through going through that experience that you would want to share with them?
Well, one, I would tell anybody to never quit whatever the hell you're doing to launch a business. Go build the business up on the side. And then once the business is sustainable, and the only reason I couldn't do that is I was opening up a direct competition for the company I was leaving. So I could not, in conscious faith, try and sell 2 companies. But I would tell anybody that. The second thing is, if you've never run a business and you're launching a business, get ready to realize you know jack shit about anything about running a business. Because I thought, being a straight commission sales guy, that being a business owner was going to be a cakewalk. Let me tell you, it's anything but. Entrepreneurs are crazy, and I'm not even sure I fully commit myself to being an entrepreneur. I'm really more of a business owner type guy. But people that do this, we literally like wake up every day knowing that we're going to get punched in the face, and it's like, smile and let's go again. You know, one day you're going to be sitting on top of the freaking, everything's great, and then the next day you're like, why the fuck am I still doing this? I have to constantly remind myself, dude, you signed up for this shit as you're going through it. And I think you have to really step back and ask yourself, why the hell are you actually going to do something like this? And it can't be to make more money. It can't be to prove that you're somebody. It's 100% got to be a mission-driven thing you're trying to freaking accomplish.
I love that you said that. I just want to geek out on that for a second, because I feel that people kind of call me crazy too, because I work full time, but I still have so much passion behind what I do. And then I have a speaking and writing career too, and a sales training business. But I'm not doing it because it's how I make money. There is passion and purpose, and there's something kind of in that entrepreneur spirit that too, when you were talking, that made me want to like talk about this for a second. Once that mission starts burning inside you, you can't turn it off. Like, I couldn't turn it off if I wanted to. And I think that there's probably some dreamers that would be listening to this episode thinking like, wow, I've had this idea in my head for 2 or 3 years that just keeps cycling, and it's very meaningful to them, but there's a fear to them as far as breaking out. What would you say to that listener?
Jump. And 100% good. Here's why. I never thought my company was going to be the company that it is. I really thought I was going to end up, even beyond the non-compete, do nothing but sales training. I thought that's where we are going to be. But networking's always been a part of my career. I mean, it's how I built and sold hundreds of millions of dollars, over my lifetime and the likes. And it became around evolved relationships and networking. But I didn't want to run a networking company where I brought people together and taught them how to network and let them grow their business. I just wasn't the business that I wanted to do. And for me, the day I decided we're going to launch networking groups, I was telling my wife this kind of same thing. Hey, I don't want to launch networking groups. I want to be the guy that's associated with networking, right? And I just thought anybody who taught networking was just some broke asshole that doesn't know how to sell, right? That's kind of the methodology I had in my head. And my wife's the one who slapped me upside the head. And what she said to me, she goes, Donnie, why don't you become the guy that changes the way the world networks and gets them to rethink everything?
See, that's deep.
Yep.
That's what you're talking about.
And that's the catalyst. So if something for your listeners keeps popping up in their head and it keeps coming to the forefront, there's something really there. you need to figure out what is the mission behind that thing, because there's a reason it keeps coming up, right? There's a reason it keeps coming to the surface. And what's funny is it took me 2.5 years after I launched my company to actually get to the networking groups. The idea, I mean, I almost bought a networking franchise. I almost bought into a networking company. There was just a lot of things along the way that kept pointing me back to running networking. And just so everybody's clear, this is not an MLM or anything like this. It's a legitimate business. And I'm not a woo-woo guy by any stretch of the imagination, but the universe sure has a weird-ass way of bringing things back up on a regular basis
That's
that
what
sometimes...
I say. The universe be universing right now.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but something's happening and I'm aware.
Yeah, it's not some magical, mystical, sparkly whatever, but
No.
if shit keeps coming up, there is something behind that saying, dude, go that direction. And once I finally had the courage to listen and then act, it became the foundation for everything. It's wild.
So there's another part of this that I think is really interesting to explore, if you're okay going down
Yep.
another rabbit hole with me, is evolution.
Yep.
If you don't start, you don't know. And what you think might happen may not actually be the thing that happens. But if you don't go through the process, you can't get to what it's supposed to be. Like how you said, you didn't know, you went to go start a sales training business, and then you ended up founding a networking business to business group that is different than all the rest, right?
Yep.
But so many people are so focused on the outcome that they think they're afraid to take that step. And all I can say is from my own experience is that nothing you think is going to happen, or maybe just a fraction of it. And it's in the evolution that clarity happens, that more purpose exposes itself. So I'd love for you to geek out on that for a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, 100%. And I love this because I don't get to talk about this as often. So thank you. It's interesting. The idea of jumping in and starting things is truly, truly beautiful. The evolution comes from going beyond where most people quit. And let me explain this. So what happens to most people is they get this beautiful idea. They're going to try something. So let's say, I don't know, they want to start a podcast. What happens to a lot of people is they left a successful career and they think the podcast is going to be the thing that allows them to get where they want to go. So they launch a podcast, they get a few guests, and then they got to edit the episodes, and then they got to get some more guests, and then they put out the show. Then they got to market the show. And somewhere along the way, they start going, damn, this is hard. This is harder than I thought it was going to be. This is more hard than I think I want to do. So you know what? We're going to put the podcast to the side. I'm going to launch a YouTube channel because I think that would just be easier. So like, now they'll just record themselves and go. So now they sit down, they record, and then they got to edit, then they got to post, and then they got to market. And then they're like, you know what? This is harder than I thought I want to do. So let's not do the YouTube, right? Let's become a blog writer. I think a blog writer is going to be the answer. So now they go back and they start writing a blog. And then they're like, oh, I got to come up with content. Oh, crap. Now I got to edit. Shit, I got to market. You know what? Screw the blog. I'm going to become a book author because I think a book author is going to be the thing. And what happens to most people is they don't allow them to actually evolve. That what they do is every time they get stacked up against it, they throw in the towel and go and pivot and try something else. Anybody who's found some sort of success is because the moment it got hard, they smiled and leaned in because they knew that's when the good shit happens. You start learning from the crap that you're going through and applying that learning. And the distance between unsuccessful and successful is inches because it's the people that continue to push on. And I tell everybody, being an entrepreneur just means you were too dumb to quit. Because logic says you have to throw in the towel a long time. Logic says go back and get a damn job, right? Logic says, why the hell would you put yourself through this? And the people that will endure, and being an entrepreneur, it's an endurance game. The people that endure are the ones that learn as they go through it. I don't think people fail. I think life is one big experiment. If life is one big experiment, you're experimenting. You're not fucking things up. That experiment didn't work. So you try it again. You apply different principles. You look at it from a different angle and you continue to go. Smile and know you're going to get punched in the face. Learn to duck that punch. Then you'll catch an uppercut. Learn to get out of the way of the uppercut. Then you'll catch a hook and it's going to keep coming. But as long as you keep applying those learnings, you force yourself to evolve. That's where everybody wins. And that's how winning is done.
That was awesome. I love that whole conversation so much. It's like music to my ears because it's just so true. I love that you said the difference between failure and success is inches.
Yep.
Because it really is just about that little bit extra and not giving up that gets you over the line. So I do want to pivot and ask you another question now.
Come on.
All right. So what is a current aha or something like that that's up for you if you have one or two you want to
Yeah, so I'm Amy Cuddy. She's got one of the most famous TED Talks there is on power poses. Phenomenal, phenomenal TED Talk. She wrote a book called Presence, and I am only a quarter away into this book, but she's got something in there that has me fucking fascinated. And what she says is everybody's throwing around this word authentic, and you got to be authentic, and you got to be authentically yourself. And what she says in the book is there is no authentic self. There's only authentic in the moment because that authentic self changes depending on the situation you're in. And I'm flabbergasted by this entire idea because I really want to be the guy that's raw and will tell the shitty side of the business so people can really understand what it takes to get there. I've been trying to document my journey this entire ride. And every time I'm screwing things up, I try and put it out there. And for me, that was my authentic side of things. But I thought, I'm not that same guy in every situation when I heard Amy say this, right? I'm one guy when I'm on stages in front of audiences, whatever else. And it's not that I'm putting on the show. I'm authentic as I can be in that moment.
and you're pulling that part of your persona like you said
100%.
it's like that. Like, I mean, I'm a sales champion at work, so president's club type. I
Yep.
have skills and stuff. I'm very authentic in that role. But if you put me in the role of Kundalini teacher, which I'm also a Kundalini yoga teacher, it's really different, but both roles are authentic. So I love that example. That's really cool.
And because I think people look at authentic as this blanket statement of this is how you have to be all the time. And, I keep going back to like, I show up pretty cool on LinkedIn. It's my favorite platform. I'm all over it. And I let people in my world, but nobody gives a shit what you had for breakfast. Right. So it's about how are you showing up? The whole point of her book is this idea of presence. So if you understand what authentic you means in the moment, you can establish trust and confidence, which allows you to create presence. And you think about it from a sales position, you think about it from a leadership position, everything's done off of trust. And we buy from people that we actually trust way beyond like. So it's the idea of knowing who you are and what's authentic for you in the moment. And that authentic may be nervous as fuck because you're in a situation you haven't been in before, right? It's taking you completely out of it. But it's knowing you're nervous and being okay with it, which is the twist of it all. And so I'm really, really fascinated with this idea. And then the second thing is standing for something. I think we live in such a vanilla world that if you don't stand for something in this day and age, now, if you work for other people, it's a lot harder to stand on certain things you want to stand on. But I'm learning more and more and more that the further I stand in my beliefs and put my beliefs out there, the more I attract my tribe, my people, and the people that I want to be hanging around.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny because in my news book too, it's a return to radiance, but the concept is basically like we have our radiant self that is full of our own uniqueness, our gifts, our strengths, our talents. And when we suppress them, we disconnect from ourselves. But when we nurture them, we become more of ourselves, and kind of like this authentic thing that you're talking about. But also within that expression is when we are in our truest nature and we're nurturing and cultivating who we are, we make an impact. Our work turns into just work. It turns into a legacy.
Yep.
When you say like take a stand, like people are like develop weaknesses. I'm like, that is bullshit. Because your weakness will always be your weak. I mean, and sometimes you do have to like nurture the things that aren't good so your skill gets a little better. But listen, like I am never going to be a good tennis player. Like it's just never going to happen.
Me either.
Yeah, it's just never going to happen. And then some people are like, well, they're already your strengths. I'm like, but we might have natural strengths, gifts, and talents, but mastering them is a different thing. Investing in yourself, bringing them to the surface. That's what the world needs more of. So anyway, that's one of my stances that I'm taking.
I like it.
I actually lean into more of you, invest in more of you, and then share it.
Yeah. I would say a lot over the years, I did not know the dude in the mirror. And I didn't invest enough in myself to figure who that guy was.
Mm-hmm.
Running a business has been a hell of a catalyst for meeting the dude in the mirror because you're going to find out what the hell you're made of really
real
quick,
fast.
right? And I was watching a movie over the weekend and there was one line in this movie that just got me to pause. And the movie's called The Beautiful Game. And it's literally about the homeless World Cup. And like 80 countries around the world bring homeless people together and do this homeless soccer World Cup match. It is the craziest thing ever. Started back in 2021 and great movie. But there's one line in the movie that just got me to pause. And one of the main characters was a professional soccer player that didn't make it to the World Cup teams and all that. And so he made it just halfway, but his entire life was lived on soccer. That was what he was known for. And he thought he was one of the greatest in the world, but he actually wasn't good enough to be one of the greatest in the world. And so he never made it to that pinnacle. And because he didn't, his whole life spiraled out of control and he found himself freaking homeless, right? She
Yeah.
says this that is just such, I mean, it hit me hard. She's looking at him and he's down on his luck in a moment in the movie. And it's actually a nun talking to him. And she goes, whatever his name is, what surprises me most is you played football your entire life. And like in his whole life, his whole first half of his life was just football and on that. And what she says is, and you've never realized that football has two halves. And I was like, holy
Oh, I
shit.
get the goosebumps,
Right?
right?
And I was sitting there, I'm like, holy shit, most people are still living that first half life. They're still living that touchdown pass, that one fucking sales
Yeah.
award, and they're not even looking at what is my second half. And so even my post on LinkedIn this morning was all about this. And I'm like, are you actually living the second half of your life?
Oh,
And I was like, oh,
I'll have to go check that out.
yeah,
I love
great.
that message so much because it kind of just reminds me of where the concept and why I felt really passionate about writing this book. I had a really unique childhood and I was raised by full-time musicians. I was born
Mm.
into a musical family and my parents were hippies, sex, drugs, rock and roll. It was actually really fucking cool. Like I grew up like in guitars and bonfires and a
Mm,
damn good time. Everybody was joyful and laughing. And what I didn't realize then is what I was seeing as people in their essence, in their
mm,
gifts and skills. And when they were like radiating. And my dad specifically was an amazing lead guitarist, can like play David Gilmour, Jimmy Page, all this stuff like flawlessly. But both my parents have passed away. And what I
mm,
noticed, and it goes to the second half, is like their first half, they were pursuing to become full-time musicians and become famous. And when that didn't happen, they ended up disconnecting from themselves,
yeah.
from other people, from the universe. And what I witnessed was more painful than anything because I witnessed them dim out,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively, until they passed away. They didn't have to be famous to make a difference,
Yeah.
to develop what and to stay true to what was meaningful to them. And so I really like that you shared that story because for listeners, there's a bigger message that we're saying here is that there's one aspect where you might have this dream that's like reoccurring in your head, and we're really encouraging you to follow that and
Mm,
to follow those breadcrumbs because the evolution may take you somewhere magnificent.
yeah.
And then there's another thing we're saying here is that maybe you were a star athlete, or maybe there's some other something that you were, or something else that fascinates you or that you really enjoy, and you don't see value because it hasn't monetized or something like that. But that might be the very thing that catapults you back into your purpose. So there's a first half and a second half. I just think that's so dope.
Yeah, it is. Last week or the week before, so this is a message for some reason keeps popping up for me. One of my clients put a post out on LinkedIn, and he was in some college World Series of baseball, and it was like a big deal for him. And he was talking about it, and he was bragging about it. And the way he wrote the post, as I started to write my comment on there, I started to say, "Man, this is so cool. This is so awesome," and I wanted to congratulate him on it. And then I realized that was 20 years ago for this guy. This is 20 years and he's still celebrating this thing. So I deleted my comment and I hadn't posted yet. And the comment I wrote was, what's your next World Series?
Pretty deep.
And I think that's what most people do is they're still living on that one moment of life, that touchdown pass, their military career, their college career, that sales award, whatever. They're
Yeah.
not shooting for that next thing. And what happened to your parents, unfortunately, is what happens to a lot of people is they stop living. They don't have a purpose anymore, right? They
Yes.
don't have anything they're shooting for. Life is essentially over for them until they decide. Imagine if your parents, and I don't want to keep bringing them into it, but imagine if
No, but
they would
that's
be a
fine.
kid,
I mean, that's why I talk about it.
right?
It's
Right. Imagine had they have chosen to, okay, we're not going to be famous, but what if we help the next generation become famous, right? What if we help the next round of musicians come up, right?
goosebumps head to toe. That's exactly what I'm talking about,
Yep.
And then deeper meaning
Yep.
unfolds, fulfillment, satisfaction, joy again.
Yep.
Like life starts feeling a lot better. Man, that is freaking cool.
Yeah.
And I was
It's
just
going to
like
become a
looking
lot
at the
more of
time.
my message.
Oh yeah, God, I could talk to you forever. I'm like, we have 3 minutes left. So we're probably going to go a few minutes over because I do want to ask you one more
Well,
question that's
please,
geared
please.
towards the listeners, and then I want you to tell us a little bit more about the summit. But as we like wrap up, what's an empowering message that you can share with the listeners? It could be anything, but
So I get thrown into this kind of hustle and grind, mentality and world, and I'm all for busting your ass and getting things done. Hard work, the right actions will outlast and do most people, but I want people to wrap their head around this is if you found success in your past, you're going to find it in the future. Winners just win. It's just the rules of the game. The trick is you can't just win. You have to go through the things you need to work and get after it. What I mean is, most of us in our careers, we worked to an unhealthy work ethic, right? We busted our ass. We put in longer
100%,
hours than we ever
100%.
should have. So I don't want people to embrace the hustle and grind. What I want them to embrace is the idea of doing the work until the work is done. So I run a full working farm. In addition to everything else I
That's
do,
so
I got dwarf Nigerian goats, turkeys, geese, chickens. They're all fun kind of menagerie of animals. Every morning I have to let those damn goats out, and every night I have to put them up. 7 days a week. I don't get a day off. And this is by choice. I love doing this. So, what I want people to understand is chasing your life is like working a farm. There are things that you're going to have to get up and do every morning, no matter what. There's things you're going to have to do every night, no matter what. It's not about the hustle and grind. It's about doing the things that will push your life forward, no matter what. That is the difference between where mediocre people stay mediocre and the successful freaking go is they're willing to do the things that others aren't willing to do. So that's the biggest message out there.
That's awesome. So I'd like for you to tell the listeners a little bit about your summit because I know it's coming up in September.
Yeah, September 18th to the 20th is a Badass Business Summit. And the summit's really designed for people that have built their company or they're starting to build their company and they understand the ideology that people buy you. People buy you and then they get what you sell. And, I love explaining it this way. People don't know, but Tony Robbins himself, and I'm not into the jumping on coals and all the crazy
Oh, I
shit he
love all that
does.
stuff. But
Oh,
anyway.
you can have it. You can have it, right? Well, then let's go this route. What is Tony Robbins' business?
Personal development, personal
Well, yeah,
empowerment.
watch this shit. Tony has 105 companies to the tune of $7 billion.
Oh yeah.
Name one of his companies.
The only one I know is Tony Robbins Research because
Right.
that's what I register for events for when I do go.
Right. So what people don't understand is Tony's only job is to be the face of Tony Robbins.
Right.
Okay. People buy you and then get what you sell. So all of his conferences, all of his summits, all of that stuff, I'm sure he wants to help people, but they are, in a sense, the gateway to sell people into his 105 companies, right? That's
Oh
how
yeah,
he
because he
makes his
has
money.
his wealth mastery, life
Yep.
mastery, and
Yep.
everything always has more next steps. I mean,
Absolutely.
he's the king of platform selling.
Absolutely. Right. So what our conference about us business summit is about is really about people by you. So it's teaching people, how do you get on more stages? How do you get on more podcasts? How do you actually dominate on LinkedIn? So I'm bringing in some of the top podcasters from around the world. We're going to put them up on a panel where people get to talk to them and ask them, how do we get on your podcast? Then we're going to do a voice style setup where those same podcasters will be on the stage. You'll get a chance to pitch to actually be on their show. And they'll be in a swivel chair. If they swivel and turn around after your pitch, you get to go on their show as a guest. They'll be doing live podcasts while we're there as well. That's going on. And then I'm bringing in Dr. Stevie Don Carter, one of the top keynote speakers in the world. She'll do 90 speeches this year, and she's going to help walk you through, how do you get more speaking engagements? How do you actually speak on stage to get more speaking engagements? And how do you actually make money from those stages? And then I've got a LinkedIn panel coming in with some of the top LinkedIn people out there: Liam Darmany, Cher Jones, Kevin Turner, Melissa Cohen. Combined, they have well over 150,000 followers, and they're going to walk you through how they actually dominate on the freaking platform. So you get a ton of exposure, amazing freaking networking experiences. With the hotel rooms are already 50% sold out. The tickets are going fast. So it is moving extremely fast. This for me is my World Series. So everybody has their thing they do, but getting on the stage and being able to pour in and help as many people as possible, this is my big thing. So I'm really stoked for this year.
That's awesome. And I am sure there's a lot of listeners that will like to attend. Is it virtual or just in person?
So we're talking about doing virtual. Depends on demand right now. We're only in person at the moment. I have the capability to live stream. So Depends on how much demand goes, but they just go to badassbusinesssummit.com and they'll find all the information.
Perfect. That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
We'll include it in the show notes too, listeners, so that you can sign up. Is it going to, where is it going to be held?
So in Fort Worth, Texas, September 18th through the 20th. And you're going to want to be there the entire time. I mean, the speakers, they all stay, all the podcast people, they're there the entire event. So it's not
That's
like people come and
awesome.
speak. They're in the crowd with you. So you're learning right beside them and the likes. Because I've been to too many summits where like the speaker flew in and then flew the fuck out. And, you know, you didn't get a chance to meet them or anything like that. No, we keep an environment where everybody's there. There's
That's
no
awesome.
pitching
Hey,
from
if I
stage.
wasn't speaking that weekend, I would go.
Well, hell with your speech and just come hang out with us.
Yeah. Ditch the keynote. Come hang out with us.
Right.
Well, awesome, Donnie. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I'd love to have you again at some point.
Oh, anytime. This is a blast. Hey, guys, if you made it this far, do me and Becca a favor. Take a screenshot wherever you're watching or listening to this and go post it to social media with your takeaway from the episode and tag me and Becca in it. And here's what happens is having my own show, trying to grow my own audience, it's a lot of damn work. So if you like her content, the guests she's bringing on, whether it's this episode or any episode, take a screenshot and post it out there. It literally lets her know this is the type of content you're looking for. And trust me, if I see the tag, she sees the tag, we will both come comment, engage. But
1000%.
it's one of the best ways to give her feedback that this is the right thing. You know, this is what you guys are looking for.
That's really cool. And we'll have it. I should close with that more often. That's awesome. Because I really want to see more comments too. But that made me ask or want to ask, what's your LinkedIn handle?
Donnie Boivin. So DONN, B as in boy, or DONNIE, B as in boy, OI, V as in Victor, IN. If you want to find time with me, literally on my LinkedIn profile, you can schedule a free call with me. So if you guys want more questions, please, I'm here to help as many damn people as I possibly can help.
I love it. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, my honor. Thank you for having me on.